the moment Tom Hanks uttered those three words on live television. She's anti-American. Pointing directly at Caroline Levitt. Hollywood's most beloved actor had just signed his own career death warrant. The CBS Evening News studio fell into stunned silence as America's dad, the man who had portrayed heroes for 4 decades, revealed a shocking hatred that would destroy everything he had built. It was supposed to be a routine interview. Tom Hanks, promoting his latest World War II film, Brothers in Battle, had agreed to appear on CBS Evening News for what should have been a standard publicity segment. The 68-year-old actor arrived at the studio in his typical everyman attire, a simple navy sweater over a white shirt, khakis, and worn leather shoes. His silver hair was slightly disheveled in that carefully casual way that had endeared him to millions. He was America's most trusted celebrity, the man who had never had a scandal, never said a controversial word, never alienated a single demographic. Norah O'Donnell welcomed him warmly. "Tom, it's always a pleasure. Your new film is getting Oscar buzz already." "Well, Norah, it's really about honoring the greatest generation," Tom began, his familiar voice carrying that mixture of humility and gravitas that had made him Hollywood royalty. These men fought against real fascism, real threats to democracy. The interview proceeded normally for the first 10 minutes. Tom discussed the film's production, shared anecdotes about working with young actors, and reflected on the importance of remembering history. Then Norah made what seemed like an innocent transition. "Speaking of democracy and current events, we're expecting White House Press Secretary Caroline Levitt to join us after the commercial break to discuss the administration's Veterans Affairs initiatives. Have you been following her work?" The change in Tom Hanks was instantaneous and shocking. His friendly demeanor vanished, replaced by a cold fury that transformed his famous features into something unrecognizable. His jaw clenched, his eyes narrowed, and his hands gripped the armrest of his chair. "Caroline Levitt," he said, his voice dripping with contempt. "You're giving that woman airtime." Norah, taken aback by the sudden shift, tried to maintain her professionalism. "Well, yes, she's the White House press secretary. She's anti-American." Tom interrupted, his voice rising. "That woman stands at that podium every day and defends a fascist administration. She's a pretty face putting makeup on tyranny. She's exactly what my characters in this film fought against, someone who enables autocracy with a smile." The studio crew exchanged shocked glances. This was Tom Hanks, the man who had played Mr. Rogers, who had never said a harsh word about anyone in his 4-decade career. The cameras were rolling, capturing every moment of his unprecedented outburst. "Tom," Norah said carefully, "those are very strong words." "Not strong enough?" Tom's face was flushed now, his carefully maintained image crumbling before millions of viewers. "Caroline Levitt is 27 years old. What does she know about America? What does she know about sacrifice? She stands there with her blonde hair and her designer suits, lying to the American people, defending policies that would make the men I portray in this film sick to their stomachs." In the control room, executive producer Kim Godwin was frantically trying to decide whether to cut to commercial. But she knew that cutting away now would only make things worse. This was Lev television. And Tom Hanks, was having a complete meltdown. "She's coming on after the break," Tom continued, not waiting for an answer. "Then I have something to say to her directly. That woman is a traitor to everything America stands for. She's anti-American, anti-democracy, anti-truth. She's a fascist enabler who should be ashamed to show her face in public." Norah tried once more to salvage the situation. "Tom, I understand you have strong political opinions. But this isn't about politics," Tom shouted, standing up abruptly. "This is about right and wrong. This is about the soul of our nation. Caroline Levitt and everyone who works for that administration are enemies of the state. They're anti-American terrorists in suits and ties." The word terrorists hung in the air like a toxic cloud. Tom Hanks had just crossed a line from which there was no return. He had called the White House press secretary a terrorist on national television. In the green room, Caroline Levitt watched the monitor in disbelief. She had arrived early for her segment, expecting to discuss the administration's new GI Bill improvements. Instead, she was watching America's most beloved actor call her anti-American and a terrorist. Her assistant, Janet, stood beside her, mouth agape. "Should we leave?" Caroline's green eyes flashed with determination. "No, I'm going on as scheduled. America needs to see this. Back in the studio, Tom was still ranting. You want to know what real Americans think? Real Americans know that Caroline Levitt is a propagandist. She's a Joseph Goebbels in a skirt suit. She's Monsieur Hanks. Nora finally raised her voice. I'm going to have to ask you to. I'm not done. Tom wheeled on her. You're part of the problem, giving that fascist mouthpiece a platform. You should be ashamed. CBS should be ashamed. Anyone who normalizes these anti-American monsters should be ashamed. Security had begun moving toward the set, unsure whether they were really about to escort Tom Hanks out of the building. This was surreal, unprecedented. The man who had been voted America's most trusted celebrity for 20 years running was having a complete breakdown on live television. We need to go to commercial, Nora said firmly. Don't you dare cut away. Tom pointed at the camera. America needs to hear this, Caroline Levitt, if you're watching. You're anti-American. You're enemy of democracy. The show cut to commercial, but the damage was done. Within seconds, clips were spreading across social media. Tom Hanks' breakdown began trending worldwide. The man who had never had a controversial moment in his career had just called a young woman a terrorist for doing her job. During the commercial break, the studio was in chaos. Tom refused to leave, demanding to confront Caroline when she came on. Security stood by nervously. How do you forcibly remove Tom Hanks? Nora tried to calm him down, but he was beyond reason. Bring her out, he demanded. Let me tell that anti-American fascist to her face what she is. In the green room, Caroline made a decision. I'm going out there. Caroline, no. Janet protested. He's clearly unstable. The American people deserve to see who Tom Hanks really is. Caroline said calmly. And they deserve to see that I won't be intimidated by Hollywood bullies, no matter how famous they are. When the show returned from commercial, Nora looked deeply uncomfortable. We're back, and as scheduled, we're joined by White House Press Secretary Caroline Levitt. However, I should note that Mr. Hanks has chosen to remain on set. Caroline walked out with perfect poise, her navy suit impeccable, her stride confident. She didn't look at Tom, instead taking her seat and facing Nora with a professional smile. Tom immediately erupted. How dare you show your face here? You anti-American, Mr. Hanks, Caroline said, her voice calm but firm, finally turning to look at him. I've admired your work my entire life. Forrest Gump taught me about perseverance. Saving Private Ryan taught me about sacrifice. It's heartbreaking to discover that the man who portrayed such honorable characters is himself so full of hate. Don't you dare. I'm 27 years old, Caroline continued, not allowing him to interrupt. I've devoted my adult life to public service. I work 18-hour days serving the American people. I've never committed a crime, never betrayed my country, never done anything but try to serve with honor. And you just called me a terrorist on national television. Tom's face was purple with rage. You serve a fascist administration. You're complicit in. I serve the duly elected President of the United States, Caroline said firmly, chosen by millions of Americans. Are they all anti-American too, Mr. Hanks? Are the veterans who voted for him, the ones you claim to honor in your films, are they terrorists? They were fooled by people like you. Caroline shook her head sadly. Mr. Hanks, what would Captain Miller from Saving Private Ryan think of you calling a young American woman a terrorist for doing her job? What would Mr. Rogers think of you spewing such hatred? Don't you invoke those characters. Why not? You've made millions portraying decent, honorable men. Yet here you sit, calling me anti-American without knowing anything about me except that I work for a president you don't like. That's not the American way, Mr. Hanks. That's the way of the very tyranny you claim to oppose. The studio was dead silent except for the two voices. Nora had given up trying to moderate, realizing she was witnessing a historic moment. Tom stood up again, pointing his finger at Caroline. You're a pretty blonde Nazi. That's what you are! A fascist Barbie doll. And there it is, Caroline said quietly. The sexism beneath the hatred. I'm reduced to my appearance, called a doll, a pretty face. Is that how you see all young women in politics, Mr. Hanks? Or just conservative ones? I respect women who deserve respect. Who deserve it. And who decides that you? Caroline's voice remained calm, but her words cut deep. The man who played Walt Disney, who brought joy to millions of children, just called me a Nazi on television. Do you understand what you've become? Tom was shaking with rage now. I've become someone willing to speak truth about anti-American fascists like you. No, Caroline said softly. You've become everything your characters fought against. Intolerant, hateful, dehumanizing. The heroes you've portrayed would be ashamed. That broke something in Tom. He lunged toward Caroline, and security finally intervened, grabbing the actor's arms. The image, Tom Hanks being physically restrained while trying to attack a young woman, would become one of the most shocking in television history. "Let me go," Tom screamed. "She's anti-American! She's a terrorist!" As security dragged him away, he continued shouting obscenities and accusations. The beloved actor who had never cursed on camera was using language that would have to be bleeped in reruns. Caroline sat calmly through it all, though those watching closely could see her hands trembling slightly. When Tom had finally been removed from the studio, she turned back to Nora. "I came here to discuss helping veterans," she said quietly. "Instead, I was called anti-American and a terrorist by someone I once admired. This is what our political discourse has become. This is what hatred does to people." Nora, clearly shaken, managed to ask, "How do you respond to his accusations?" "I don't," Caroline said simply. "My work speaks for itself. My service speaks for itself. I won't dignify such hatred with a detailed response. I'll only say this: I feel sorry for Mr. Hanks. To carry that much rage, that much hatred, it must be exhausting." The interview continued for another 10 minutes, with Caroline discussing the veterans' initiatives as if nothing had happened. Her professionalism in the face of such an attack was remarkable. When it ended, she stood, shook Nora's hand, and walked off with dignity intact. Outside the CBS building, a crowd had already gathered. Word of the incident had spread, and people wanted to show their support for Caroline. As she exited, they burst into applause. "We're with you, Caroline. You showed real class in there." "Tom Hanks doesn't speak for us." Caroline waved graciously but didn't stop to grandstand. She got in her car and returned to the White House, where she would have to brief the president on what had occurred. Meanwhile, Tom Hanks' publicist, Michelle Margulis, was in full panic mode. Her phone hadn't stopped ringing. Every major outlet wanted a statement. Studio executives were calling. His agency was in crisis meetings. Within an hour, Paramount Pictures released a statement. "We are deeply disturbed by Mr. Hanks' behavior on CBS this evening. His views do not represent our company, and we are reviewing our relationship with him." Sony Pictures followed. "The comments made by Tom Hanks tonight were abhorrent and unacceptable. We condemn them in the strongest possible terms." Even Disney, where Tom had been developing a new project, distanced themselves. "The Walt Disney Company believes in respect and civility in public discourse. Mr. Hanks' behavior tonight violated those principles." The speed of Hollywood's abandonment was breathtaking. The man who had been their most bankable, most beloved star for decades was being cast out within hours. On social media, the reaction was explosive. Tom Hanks's over party trended worldwide. Clips of him calling Caroline anti-American and a terrorist were viewed millions of times. The attempted physical attack, though brief, was particularly damaging. Conservative celebrities who had long stayed quiet in liberal Hollywood began speaking out. Tim Allen tweeted, "I've known Tom for 30 years. I never knew he was capable of such hatred." Calling Caroline Levitt a terrorist, disgusting. James Woods was more direct. "Tom Hanks just showed Hollywood's true face. They preach tolerance while practicing fascism." Caroline Levitt handled it with more class than he deserved. Even liberal celebrities couldn't defend him. Mark Ruffalo tweeted, "Political disagreement is one thing. Calling someone anti-American and attempting physical intimidation is another. This wasn't okay." Meryl Streep, one of Tom's oldest friends, released a statement. "While I understand passionate political feelings, words like terrorist and anti-American have no place in civil discourse. I'm disappointed." The financial implications hit immediately. Brothers in Battle, Tom's new film, had pre-sales of $45 million for its opening weekend. Within 24 hours, theater chains reported mass cancellations. The film that had been tracking for a $100 million opening was now projected to make less than $10 million. Netflix announced they were pulling all Tom Hanks films from their platform, pending review. Amazon Prime followed suit. Within 48 hours, Tom Hanks had effectively been erased from streaming services. His upcoming projects began falling like dominoes. A biopic he was set to star in was canceled. A voice role in an animated film was recast. His production company's deal with Apple TV Fuss was terminated. But perhaps the most painful blow came from the veterans' organizations. The veterans of foreign wars released a scathing statement. Tom Hanks has profited from portraying military heroes, while calling a young woman serving her country anti-American. His hypocrisy is stunning, and we no longer consider him a friend to veterans. The American Legion followed Mr. Hanks' attack on Press Secretary Levitt, including calling her a terrorist, is beneath contempt. Many of our members support the current administration. Are we terrorists too, Mr. Hanks? Tom tried to do damage control the next day, releasing a statement through his publicist. I let my political passions overwhelm my better judgment. While I stand by my concerns about the current administration, my words were inappropriate. The non-apology only made things worse. He hadn't apologized to Caroline, hadn't retracted his American and terrorist accusations, hadn't addressed his attempted physical attack. Caroline, for her part, handled the situation with continued grace. At her next press briefing, she was asked about Tom Hanks repeatedly. Do you think he should apologize? That's for Mr. Hanks and his conscience to decide. Were you frightened when he moved toward you? I was saddened. Violence is never the answer, especially from someone who's made a career portraying peaceful conflict resolution. Do you think his career should be over? I don't believe in cancel culture, but I do believe in consequences. Mr. Hanks revealed something about himself last night. How Hollywood and the public respond is up to them. The public response was decisive. Tom's social media accounts, which had millions of followers, saw a mass exodus. He lost 3 million Instagram followers in 48 hours. His Facebook page was flooded with negative comments from former fans. I've loved Tom Hanks for 30 years. Seeing him call that young woman a terrorist broke my heart. My veteran husband and I are done with Tom Hanks. Calling Caroline anti-American. He's lost his mind. Tom Hanks trying to physically attack a woman half his age. This isn't the man I thought he was. Within a week, Tom Hanks had become radioactive in Hollywood. His agent dropped him. His publicist resigned. His manager of 25 years said he needed to take a break from the business. The financial losses mounted. His production company, Playtone, saw all its development deals canceled. His estimated net worth of $400 million began evaporating as projects were canceled and residuals dried up. Rita Wilson, his wife of 37 years, was caught in the crossfire. Her upcoming album was canceled by the label, not wanting association with the Hanks name. She had to withdraw from a Broadway project when advance ticket sales plummeted. A month after the incident, Tom attempted a comeback with a full-page ad in the New York Times. In it, he apologized more fully but still tried to justify his actions. I let my fear for our democracy cause me to act in undemocratic ways. I apologized to Ms. Levitt for my words, though I maintain serious concerns about the administration she represents. Caroline responded with a simple tweet, apology acknowledged. I continue to pray for healing in our divided nation, and for Mr. Hanks to find peace. Her gracious response only highlighted the contrast between them. She was the young professional who had maintained composure under attack. He was the veteran actor who had lost all control. 3 months later, Brothers in Battle was released straight to streaming, having been pulled from theatrical release. It made less than $2 million, a catastrophic failure for a film that had cost $80 million to produce. Reviews were savage, with critics unable to separate the art from the artist. Watching Tom Hanks portray a hero fighting fascism is nauseating after seeing him act like a fascist himself, wrote The Hollywood Reporter. Variety was equally harsh. Every scene is tainted by the knowledge that Hanks called a young public servant a terrorist for doing her job. The Academy, which had been prepared to campaign for Hanks' 7th Oscar nomination, quietly distanced themselves. He wasn't invited to any awards season events. The man who had been Hollywood royalty was now persona non grata. A year later, Tom Hanks was spotted at a grocery store in Idaho, where he and Rita had retreated. Paparazzi photos showed a man who looked decades older, gray and worn. He had grown a beard, perhaps hoping to hide from recognition. But everyone knew who he was and what he had done. When a documentary about the incident was released, featuring interviews with CBS staff who were there that night, new details emerged. The makeup artist revealed, after they dragged him out, he was still screaming about fascists and anti-Americans. It was like watching someone have a complete psychotic break. A camera operator added, the look in his eyes when he went after Caroline. I've never seen such hatred. It was terrifying. Caroline Levitt, meanwhile, had become something of a folk hero. Young women across the political spectrum admired how she had handled the attack. She received thousands of letters from women sharing their own stories of being belittled and attacked by powerful men. She used her platform to promote civility in political discourse, often citing the Tom Hanks incident as an example of how hatred corrupts. "Mr. Hanks was beloved because he represented the best of us," she would say. "When he let hatred consume him, he became the worst of us. It's a cautionary tale for all of us." 2 years after the incident, Tom Hanks gave his first interview to a small podcast. He seemed broken, reflective. "I destroyed everything I built because I couldn't control my anger. I called a young woman terrible things because I disagreed with her politics. I became the intolerant person I claimed to oppose." When asked if he would apologize to Caroline directly, he said, "I've written her letters. She hasn't responded, and I don't blame her. Some things can't be undone." Indeed, Caroline had received the letters but chosen not to respond. She had moved on, focusing on her work and her growing influence as a voice for civility in politics. The letters sat in a file, unread after the first one, which had still tried to justify his actions even while apologizing. The Tom Hanks incident became a watershed moment in American culture. It showed that no amount of fame or beloved status could protect someone who crossed the line into hatred and attempted violence. It demonstrated that the public would not tolerate political dehumanization, even from their favorites. Film schools studied it as an example of how quickly a career could implode. Political scientists analyzed it as a symptom of dangerous polarization. Psychologists examined it as a case study in how political hatred could corrupt even seemingly decent people. For Tom Hanks, there would be no comeback. Unlike other celebrities who had scandals and returned, his fall was too complete, too shocking. The image of America's dad being dragged away while screaming, "Terrorist," at a young woman was indelible. The man who had played heroes had revealed himself as anything but. He lived quietly in Idaho, occasionally spotted at local stores, always alone. Rita had eventually left him, unable to bear the isolation and shame. His children distanced themselves, embarrassed by their father's public breakdown. The man who had portrayed beloved characters ended up alone, consumed by the hatred he had unleashed. Caroline Levitt continued her career in public service, eventually writing a book about civility in politics. She dedicated it to all who choose grace over hatred, dialogue over demagoguery, and respect over rage. She never mentioned Tom Hanks by name in the book, but everyone knew he was the cautionary tale woven throughout its pages. In the end, the story of Tom Hanks and Caroline Levitt became a modern morality tale. The powerful man who attacked the young woman thinking his status would protect him. The young woman who responded with dignity and grace. The public who chose decency over celebrity. Tom Hanks had called Caroline Levitt anti-American. But in his hatred, he had betrayed the very American values he claimed to champion: respect, tolerance, and civil discourse. The real anti-American, it turned out, was the man in the mirror, and by the time he realized it, it was far too late. His legacy, built over 40 years of beloved performances, was destroyed in 40 minutes of hatred. The man who had taught us that life was like a box of chocolates had chosen to fill his box with poison. And in the end, he was the only one who had to eat it.